الذين آمنوا منكم والذين أوتوا العلم درجات والله بما تعملون خبير.
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فإن خير الكلام كلام الله عز وجل وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدع وكل بدعة دلالة وكل دلالة في النار وبعد. We welcome the dear brothers and sisters again to another lesson from the lessons of the explanation, the Sharh al-Qawā'id-ul-Arba'a by the great Imam Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab, and the explanation by our Shaykh Salih Fawzan Hafidhullah Ta'ala on the 27th of Shawwal in the year 1444 Al-Hijri, corresponding to the 17th of May, the year 2023. Still continuing with the introduction, the Shaykh, the great Imam, the reviver of Tawheed in the Bilad al-Jazira, the Jazirat al-Arabiya, he says, Rahimahullah Ta'ala, فَإِذَا رَفْتَ أَنَّ اللَّهَ خَلَقَ لِعِبَادَتِهِ. So if you know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created you to worship Him, فَأْلَمْ أَنَّ الْعِبَادَةَ لَا تُسَمَّى عِبَادَةً إِلَّا مَا تَوْحِيدٍ. Then know that worship is not called or labeled worship except with Tawheed. كما أن الصلاة لا تسمى الصلاة إلا ما طهارة. Just likewise, prayer is not called prayer until it has purification, tahara, along with it. فإذا دخل الشرك في العبادة, if shirk, associating partners with Allah, enters into worship, fasadat, then it becomes corrupt and spoiled and invalid. كالحدث إذا دخل في طهارة, just like when somebody breaks their purification, their tahara. This actual section is continuing with the section before, where the Shaykh brings the ayah in the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. The Shaykh brought that ayah and started explaining it, and we're carrying on with that and this section as well because they're connected. So the Shaykh Salih Fawzan Hafidhullah says, Shaykh Salih Fawzan Hafidhullah said, explaining this section, فَإِذَا أَرَفْتَ أَنَّ اللَّهَ خَلَقَ لِعِبَادَتِهِ. When you know all this, and you know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created you to worship Him. وَهَذَا حَقُّ اللَّهِ عَلَى الْعِبَادِ. It is the right of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the right of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon His creation, upon His slaves. This is the right of Allah, the haqq of Allah, that we worship Him alone, that we turn to Allah alone, that we have reliance, total reliance upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that we have a total submission and humbleness and need of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is what this is, that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us to worship Him. The Shaykh says, يعني إذا رفت من هذا من هذه الآية وما خلقت الجن والإنس إلا ليعبدون. I did not create, Allah is saying, I did not create jinn and mankind except to worship me. The Shaykh said, وأنت من الإنس, that you are from mankind. داخل في هذه الآية, that you enter into this ayah, you come under this ayah, that you are created. وعرفت, then you will know, أن الله ما خلقك عبثا, that Allah didn't create you merely out of play or amusement. Allah didn't just create you for no reason. أو خلقك, or that Allah created you لتأكل وتشرب فقط, that you, all that you do is eat and drink. Allah didn't create us just for that, just for eating and drinking. تعيش في هذه الدنيا وتسرح وتمرح, that Allah created you, that you live in this life, يعني, to do as one likes, enjoy yourself and play and forget about reality. The Shaykh says, لم يخلقك لهذا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not create you for this. خلقك الله لعبادته. Allah created you to worship Him. So this is the crux of the matter. This is the pinnacle of the issue. This is the peak, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only created us to worship Him. Allah has no need of us. And we'll see that later on. Allah has no need of us. Allah ghaniyun hamid. Allah is free of all want and the praiseworthy. Allah has no need for us. But Allah created us out of His mercy for us to worship Him. Allah has angels that worship Him. Yani submit their total will to Allah and they do whatever Allah wants them to. But still, out of Allah's mercy, He created mankind and jinn so that they could worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That they will carry out that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants them to carry out. They will do that, implement that which Allah wants. Praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, glorifying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, seeking forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, acknowledging Allah's greatness. The Shaykh says, وَإِنَّمَا سَخَّرَ لَكَ هَذِهِ الْمَوْجُودَاتِ, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made and utilized these everything in existence, min ajli an tasta'inu biha ala ibadati, then so that you will seek aid with this to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. لأنك لا تستطيع أن تعيش إلا بهذه الأشياء, because you cannot survive, you cannot live except with these things. You need food, you need drink, you need a house, you need clothing, you need cars, you need all these type of things. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions this in the Quran, and mentions these points in the Quran. This is where the wisdom comes from, reading the Quran a lot, memorizing as much as you can, and with that you'll have wisdom. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in Surah Luqman, for example, in ayah 20, أَلَمْ تَرَوْا أَنَّ اللَّهَ سَخَّرَ لَكُمْ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ. Do you not see that Allah has made subject to you, Allah has given it, utilized, made it for you, made subject to you whatever is in the heavens and whatever is in the earth? And Allah has made this for you. Why? So you can worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You can seek aid with this, seek aid with sustenance, food and drink. Seek aid with having shelter from the weather, hot weather from the cold weather, so you can worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the same ayah, and وَأَسْبَغَ عَلَيْكُمْ نِعْمَهُ, and amply, a lot bestowed upon you, amply bestowed upon you His favors, His ni'mah, ظَاهِرَةً وَبَاطِنًا, the apparent, clear ones and the unapparent, the ones that you can't see, the great blessings. وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَن يُجَادِلُ فِي اللَّهِ بِغَيْرِ عِلْمٍ وَلَا هُدًى وَلَا كِتَابٍ مُنِيرٍ. And but of the people, is he who disputes about Allah without knowledge or guidance or a clear book from him, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They have no proofs whatsoever, and yet they debate against you, the people. They dispute about Allah. Oh, Allah doesn't exist. Like the atheists, they said, oh, this is not true, this is not real. That Allah or the Creator is not real. It's just, we came about by chance. They say all these things. So we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created and everything in the heavens and earth and subjected it for us to use, so we can yasta'een or seek aid to help us to carry out the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we can't survive without this, like the Shaykh said. The Shaykh says, وَلَا تَتَوَصَّلْ إِلَىٰ إِبَادَةٍ إِلَّا بِهَذِهِ أَشْيَاءٍ. You cannot reach to the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala except with these things, except with these matters. سَخَّرَهَا اللَّهُ لَكَ لِأَجْلِ أَن تَعْبُدُوهُ. Allah created them, subjected these things, so that you can worship Him. لَيْسَ مِنْ أَجْلِ أَن تَفْرَحْ. Not so you can become happy by it. وَتَسْرَحْ وَتَمْرَحْ. That you do as one pleases. وَتَفْسِقُ وَتَفْجُرُ. That you do evil deeds by these things. Everything that Allah has given us, we need to try to utilize it to the best way possible. So we don't end up using our mobile phones for haram. We use it for good things. We don't start using our tabs and iPads and computers for haram. We start using it, utilizing it for good things and halal things and for the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We don't start utilizing the wealth that Allah gives us, the money that He gives us, to go and spend it on haram or try to utilize it in haram means. Rather, we use these things, that every ni'mah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us, for halal things, for good things, for beneficial things, those things that will strengthen me to be able to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Shaykh says, تأكل وتشرب ما اشتهيت. You eat and drink whatever you want. هذا شأن البهائم. And this is the matter, or this is the way of the animals. أما الآدميون. As for human beings, for Allah جل وعلا خلقهم لغاية عظيمة وحكمة عظيمة وهي إبادة. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created human beings for a great purpose, a great wisdom, which is the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When we reflect and look at these type of matters, these matters that why we were created, what was the purpose of creation, why did Allah make me, we find that it fulfills us, it fulfills our spiritual needs, our physical needs, knowing about how great Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. The greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the foundation for our worship. The greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the foundation of our tawheed, that we turn to Him alone. To the extent that there are certain people nowadays, or even from before, there's one recently, he started claiming knowing the unseen. Knowing the unseen, the things nobody can see. He claims to have knowledge of the unseen. And only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has this knowledge. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has this knowledge. Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in Surah Luqman again, the last ayah in Surah Luqman, إِنَّ اللَّهَ إِنَّهُ عِلْمُ السَّاعَةِ. That indeed Allah has the knowledge, the knowledge of the final hour. When the final hour will come, this knowledge is only with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَيُنَزِّلَ الْغَيْثِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who sends down the rain. This is specific to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَيَعْلَمُ مَا فِي الْأَرْحَامِ. And Allah knows what is in the wombs. It's not talking about knowing about, is it a boy or is it a girl or anything like this. Knowing if that person's going to live, what type of life that person is going to live. Is it going to be a happy soul? Is it going to be a wretched soul? Is it going to be a happy person? Is it going to be a wretched person? Only Allah knows what's in the wombs. وَمَا تَدْرِي نَفْسٌ مَاذَا تَكْسِبُ غَدًا. Okay, that a soul, a person does not know what it will gain, acquire tomorrow. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We make plans. We got to get ready. Get my clothes ready because I'm going to work tomorrow. Get my shoes ready. Get my lunch ready. We do not know what we're going to gain tomorrow. We might not survive till tomorrow. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows. We think we are. We have plans. We have these things. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows. وَمَا تَدْرِي نَفْسٌ بِأَيْ أَرْضٍ تَمُوتُ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues, and the soul, the person does not know in which land he will die. He does not know where he's going to die. Only Allah knows where a person's going to die. He could just travel to another land for a job or for a reason or for a holiday or for a visit, and he dies in that land. He doesn't know. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows. وَإِنَّ اللَّهَ عَلِيمٌ خَبِيرٌ. Indeed, Allah is the most knowledgeable and the most aware, knows about everything. Allah knows about everything. So it shows us the greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the reason for our creation. Likewise, is a very beautiful hadith which I would like to read to you. A beautiful hadith, it's a long hadith, but a very important hadith. And this hadith is from the hadith of Arba'in an-Nawawiyah. From the hadith of Arba'in an-Nawawiyah, the great famous book by Imam Nawawi rahimahullah. It's a small book called the 40 Hadith of Imam Nawawi, and it's a very important book which we need to start reading and learning and studying, because it gives us the foundations of our religion from the Hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. The Hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. And you have many, many principles in this book from the Hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, from the lips of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So it's one of those very important books that we start reading. For example, when we give dawah to people, invite people to the deen, and they ask us, oh, what do I need to learn? So you give them Usul al-Thalatha by the great Imam Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab rahimahullah, with the explanation by Shaykh Uthaymeen. So they start reading that. We give them Arba'in an-Nawawiyah, the Hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, with its explanations. I'm sure there's some explanations available in English. We start reading these Hadith, these gems, these pearls from the lips of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we encourage the people to start reading the Hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this Hadith, in Hadith number 24, from Abi Dharr al-Ghafari radiyallahu anhu, أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. So from Abi Dharr al-Ghafari radiyallahu anhu, from the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, فيما يرويه عن ربه عز وجل أنه قال, that he narrated from his Lord Allah Azza wa Jal, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said. So this is a hadith which is a hadith Qudsi, which is the wording and the meaning is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, except that it's different from the Quran, whereas the Quran, it is reading the Quran is worship, whereas reading the hadith, yes, you get a reward for it, but it's not worship. That's the distinction between the Quran, the uncreated speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the hadith of Qudsi and the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You get reward for reading it, but it's not worship. So in this hadith, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, Ya ibadi, inni haramtu dhulma ala nafsi, وَجَعَلْتَهُ بَيْنَكُمْ مُحَرَّمًا فَلَا تَظَالَمُوا. O my slaves, indeed I have made oppression haram upon myself, and I've made it haram amongst yourselves. So do not oppress one another. فَلَا تَظَالَمُوا. So do not oppress. Look at that great foundation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala began this hadith with this statement of oppression. Not to oppress one another, or not to oppress. Then Allah says, Ya ibadi, kullukum dallun illa man hadaytahu, فَاسْتَحْدُونِ أَهْدِكُمْ. O my slaves, all of you are misguided. Look at that. All of you are misguided, except for the one I have guided. So seek guidance from me, I will guide you. Subhanallah, the greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He starts with dhulm and then he mentions guidance, because guidance to the deen is the most important guidance, because it is guidance to the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ya ibadi, kullukum ja'i'un illa man at'amtuhu, fastat'imuni at'imukum. O my slaves, all of you are hungry, except for the one I fed. So seek for food from me, and I will feed you. Ya ibadi, kullukum arin illa man kasawtuhu, fastaksuni aksukum. O my slaves, all of you are naked, except for the one I clothed. So seek clothing from me, and I will clothe you. Shows us the greatness of Allah, that everything that we have, all the blessings that we have, are from Allah. Allah is the one who gives it. And we turn to Allah for more, because of His great favors and His blessings upon us. Ya ibadi, innakum tukhti'una bil-layli wan-nahar, wa ana aghfiru adh-dhunuba jami'an, fastaghfiruni aghfir lakum. O my slaves, indeed you make mistakes during the day and night, and I forgive sins. I forgive all sins, jami'an. Fastaghfiruni aghfir lakum. So seek forgiveness of me, and I will forgive you. Ya ibadi. How Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is addressing us. Look how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is addressing us. He's calling my slaves. That honor of being called my slave. My worshippers. Ya ibadi. Allah, that is a great honor in itself. So when we're Muslims, we're believers, we're sticking to the Kitab and the Sunnah, Allah, manhaj as-salaf as-salih, we're the worshippers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ya ibadi, innakum lan tablughu darri fatadurruni. Indeed, you will not reach to the level of harming me, so to harm me. وَلَن تَبْلُغُوا نَفْعِي فَتَنْفَعُونِ. That you will not reach to the level of benefiting, you will not reach to the level of benefiting so that you can benefit me. Show the greatness of Allah. And no matter how much we try or anything like that, we will never, because here the word is used, وَلَن تَبْلُغُوا. You will never reach to the level that you can harm me. Because we have crazy people thinking that they can harm Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by them disbelieving in Allah, by them rejecting Allah, by them not submitting themselves to Allah. They think that they can harm Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Look how much the shaitan has whispered to them, to making them think that they can harm Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah is telling us, you will never reach to that level that you will be able to harm me, or to the level that you will be able to benefit me. Allah tells us about this in the Quran, so many places. وَهُوَ الْغَنِيُّ الْحَمِيدُ. He is free of all want, and He is the praiseworthy. Then Allah says, Ya ibadi, لو أن أولكم وآخركم وإنسكم وجنكم كانوا على أتقى قلب رجل واحد منكم ما زاد ذلك في ملكي شيء. O my worshippers, if it were that the first of you and the last of you, the mankind, the human of you and the jinn of you, all got together, gathered together, united upon the heart of the most pious person from amongst you, that will not increase me in my dominion whatsoever. See the greatness. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. I did not create you except that you worship me. مَا أُرِيدُ مِنْهُمْ مِنْ رِزْقٍ. I do not want from them provision. The ayah continues in Surah Dhariyat, the ayah that we're looking at. مَا أُرِيدُ مِنْهُمْ رِزْقًا. I created you to worship me. I don't need risk. I do not need provision from you. وَمَا أُرِيدُ أَن يُطْعِمُونَ. I do not need you to feed me. SubhanAllah, we cannot increase Allah in His dominion. When we stop and reflect how great the universe is, and recently there's videos going around of how many billions and billions and billions of galaxies there are. It will not increase the mulk of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the dominion, the authority, the control, the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in anything. Ya ibadi, لو أن أولكم وآخركم وإنسكم وجنكم كانوا على أفجر قلب رجل واحد منكم ما نقص ذلك من ملكي شيء. O my slaves, if lo, the first of you and the last of you, the human of you and the jinn of you, all got together, united, every single human being, every single jinn, the billions of mankind that came from the time of Adam alayhi salam, got together on the heart of the worst, most evil person, أفجر القلب رجل واحد, the most evil heart of a person. ما نقص من ملكي شيئا. This would not decrease my dominion, my what I own, what I have, anything. Not even a little bit, nothing. يا عبادي لو أن أولكم وآخركم وإنسكم وجنكم قاموا في صعيد واحد فسألوني فأتيت كل واحد مسألته ما نقص ذلك مما عندي إلا كما ينقص المخيط إذا أدخل البحر. Here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is bringing similitude for us. O my worshippers, whether it was from the first of you to the last of you, the man, human of you and the jinn of you, came together, all together, in one big plain, one big field, and you asked me, I would give every single one of you what you wanted. And that would not decrease me in anything except like the decreasing of a needle being entered into the sea. When we compare a needle to the sea, look how great the oceans are of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah has given us a description, but even that wouldn't make the dominion of Allah deficient. Nothing. Even if I gave you everything for all of mankind, it would not decrease, except like a little needle put in the sea, popped out, little bit of water, a little bit of molecule of water. That's how much it will decrease. Ya ibadi, innama hiya a'malukum, uhsiha lakum. O my slaves, indeed there are actions which I gather for you. Thumma uwaffikum iyaha, then I will pay you back for that. I will give you for that. Those actions that you do of worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah is adding them up. Allah is adding them up for you, and Allah will give you recompense. Allah will give you back. فَمَنْ وَجَدَ خَيْرًا فَلْيَحْمَدِ اللَّهِ. So whoever finds goodness, that he has the ability to worship Allah, he recognizes the greatness of Allah, he knows who Allah is, and he turns to Allah, فَلْيَحْمِدَ اللَّهِ, then he should praise Allah. وَمَنْ وَجَدَ غَيْرَ ذَلِكَ, and whoever finds other than that, فَلَا يَلُومَنَّ إِلَّا نَفْسُهُ, then he should not blame anyone except his own self. That he hasn't persevered in turning to Allah. He hasn't persevered and strove to worship Allah. He hasn't persevered in submitting himself, trying his best to turn to Allah and accepting what Allah has said. And this hadith is narrated in Sahih Muslim. Continuing with the explanation of the Shaykh Salih Fawzan, he mentioned this ayah, قال تعالى وما خلقت الجن والإنس إلا ليعبدون ما أريد منهم من رزق. Okay, I did not create jinn or mankind except to worship me. I do not want from them rizq, yani provision. The Shaykh says, Allah ما خلقك لتكتسب له. Allah did not create you so that you can gain something for Him. Allah did not create you so that you can gain something for Him. أن تحترف وتجمع له مالا, that you become skilled and you gather wealth for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. كما يفعل بني آدم بعضهم لبعض, just like the children of Adam alayhi salam, human beings, do for each other. يجعلون عمالا يجمعون لهم المكاسب, they gather the people, or they have employees who gather wealth for them. لا, Allah غني هذا, Allah is free of all this. والله غني العالمين, Allah is free of all that exists. So we are the ones that need Allah. That's why we're telling the people, worship Allah, pray, make dua, turn to Allah, ask Allah. Don't go and ask from a grave. Don't go ask from a tree. Don't go ask from a stone. Don't go ask from a dead person in the grave or from a shrine or anything like this. Ask of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then the Shaykh says, وَلِهَذَا, and this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, مَا أُرِيدُ مِنْهُمْ مِنْ رِزْقٍ وَمَا أُرِيدُ أَن يُطْعِمُونَ. And I do not need from them, I do not want from them provisions, and I do not need from them to feed me. Allah Jalla wa Ala yut'im wa la yut'am. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala feeds and is not fed. Ghaniyun an ta'am. Allah is free from food. Wa ghaniyun Jalla wa Ala bidhatihi. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Jalla wa Ala is free from need in his self. Wa laysa huwa fi hajatin ila ibadatik. Allah has no need of your worship. Law kafarta, if you disbelieved in Allah, ma nakasat al-mulk Allah, then this does not decrease the mulk, the dominion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. ولكن أنت الذي بحاجة إليه. Rather, you are the one who is in need of Allah. أنت الذي بحاجة إلى عبادة. You are the one that is in need of worship. فمن رحمته, and from the mercy of Allah, أنه أمرك بعبادته, that he ordered you to worship him. Why? The Shaykh says, مصلحتك. من أجل مصلحتك, for your benefit. It's for your benefit. You alone. That's where sincerity comes in. Sincerity for Allah comes in when you worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not because your relatives force you to, not because your brother or your sister force you to, not because your parents force you to, not because the people you hang out. No, you're sincere and you push yourself. The Shaykh says, من أجل مصلحتك, يعني because of a benefit for you. لأنك إذا عبدته, because if you worshipped him, فإنه سبحانه وتعالى يكرمك بالجزاء والثواب, because if you worshipped Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah will honor you with reward and a recompense and a reward. فالإبادة سبب لإكرام الله لك في الدنيا والآخرة. So worship is the means or the reasons why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will honor you in the dunya and in the hereafter. فَمَنَ الَّذِي يَسْتَفِيدْ مِنَ الْعِبَادَةِ. So who is the one that benefits from worship? الْمُسْتَفِيدْ مِنَ الْعِبَادَةِ هُوَ الْعَابِدْ نَفْسُهُ. That the one who benefits from worship is the worshipper himself. أَمَّا اللَّهُ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ, أَمَّا Allah Jalla wa Ala, as for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, فَإِنَّهُ غَنِيٌّ لِلْخَلْقِهِ. That Allah is free, does not need, free of need from his creation. With that, we've come to the end of the explanation for today. There's a few questions here, so we'll inshallah try to see if we can answer them with tawfiq from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, inshallah. The first question here mentions, it is widespread that many Muslims use prayer rugs. Every time they want to pray, some households have pets, so they insist on using prayer rugs to pray on, just in case the floor or mat is impure. Is this from the whisperings of shaitan, and how should this issue be explained to common Muslims? Awam. As for use of prayer rugs, then this is permissible. This is permissible. There's even times, narrations from the Prophet ﷺ that they used prayer mats. That they used prayer mats. The Prophet ﷺ himself mentioned about asking for a prayer mat. So the asl of it is permissible. They're permissible to use it. The prayer mat should be something that whoever uses it, it shouldn't be something that should be so decorated that it becomes a distraction. So when you're praying on a prayer mat, it's better to have simple plain ones and not have ones which have lots of decoration upon them or anything like this. And we should keep away from, like scholars mentioned, that keep away from prayer mats which have picture of the Kaaba or the Masjid al-Nabawi or Masjid Aqsa or anything like this. You should keep away from prayer mats which have these type of pictures on them. As regards the prayer mat, then this is permissible. If a person feels that they have pets, for example, so they have cat hair everywhere, then it's permissible to use a prayer mat every time. But if a person says maybe it might be impure, no, there's a difference here. One is that there's cat hair. He knows he's got cats. He has cats in his house, and he knows that the rug or the mat or the carpet has cat hair on it. Then or even if he can't see it, but he knows that there is cat hair, they can use a prayer mat, and that's not a problem. The problem is when people have suspicion that, oh, this place might be impure. No, we don't base our religion upon whisperings of shaitan in the sense that may be impure. No, we base it upon certainty. If we don't see najasa, impurities, then it's permissible to pray. Preference, that's okay to take the prayer mat. But if somebody says, no, I'm not praying here because because of this and this, it might be impure, it might be, no. And this is the excuse that a lot of people use for not praying at, like, maybe at school or in university or at work. They said, oh, you don't know because people have been walking around and they've gone to the bathroom, and you know how filthy the bathrooms are here. And well, if you can't see the najasa, the impurity, then it's permissible to pray on that. To the extent that the Prophet ﷺ said, pray in sheep pens, but do not pray in camel pens. Sheep pen, where the sheep are gathered, it is permissible to pray there. Not that you prostrate on animal droppings. No, it's not that. Okay, but the surroundings that you know, sheep are running around everywhere, and there may be some droppings or whatever, but it's permissible to pray. It's permissible to pray in those. And sheep pen. This is the excuse that people use when they say, oh, for example, they were out in a park somewhere or on the beach somewhere, and they say, oh, we don't know. You can't see the najasa, but they say, we don't know. We advise them, we explain to them that, you know, as long as you can't see it, then it's okay. And you explain to them in a nice way that the Prophet ﷺ, even at his time, they used to pray on sand. They used to pray on the floor. And that cats and dogs and animals and donkeys used to walk through the Prophet's masjid. Walk through the Prophet's masjid. There's narrations of that. A sheep came, and the Prophet ﷺ moved forward to his sutra. A sheep came into the masjid and was about to come in front of the Prophet ﷺ leading the prayer. And the Prophet ﷺ moved forward, stepped forward to let the sheep go behind him. So the sheep was in the masjid. And even now, when sometimes you go to the Prophet's masjid, even though it's got doors and everything and there's crowds, you see cats in the masjid. So these are whisperings from shaitan, and we explain to the people. Another question, and Allah knows best. Another question, could you recommend fitting education and jobs suitable for brothers in the non-Muslim countries that could also be of benefit if one would relocate to a Muslim country in the future? There's two situations here, or maybe three. One of them is that if you want to relocate to a Muslim country, then you should start looking and searching for jobs that are available in Muslim countries, because everybody has different skill sets. Okay, everybody has different skill set. So you need to inquire what are those skills that Muslim countries need, and every Muslim country is different in its needs and its what's the word? The accessibility of living in those countries. So, for example, in a lot of the Middle East, the Gulf countries like Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Emirates, some of those countries you need certain qualifications to be able to actually enter and live and work there. Okay, so for example, people need degrees. You have to have a university degree to work in a Muslim country like Saudi Arabia or some of these other countries. However, it's not necessary that you have a degree, because they might require a certain qualification, not necessarily a degree. Okay, so it all depends on what type of skill set that you have and what type of country. For example, you might want to go live in Indonesia, a Muslim country, so you can find out what are the requirements, what do you need. And in most cases, coming from the West, the non-Muslim countries in the West, and that most of us, we get into teaching English as a second language, teaching in a school, something like that, and because many of these Muslim countries have schools that teach the English Western curriculums. So that's one other avenue. I would suggest that the best thing is to visit Muslim countries. Visit Muslim countries. Save up some cash, go visit a Muslim country, and go see what's available, see what type of things they need. They don't need taxi drivers. Muslim countries have taxi drivers. They don't need bus drivers. So you go to educational centers, office jobs, these type of places. So it all depends on the place and the skill set, and everyone is different in that. But we would definitely encourage people to move to the lands of the Muslims. And Allah's earth is spacious, and we're not talking about everybody has to have the best lifestyles, but rather put your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, go and visit the Muslim lands, and there are many Muslim lands, many Muslim lands, and you'll find jobs everywhere. Make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, do some research, save some money, go visit and see where the communities are, that the people who follow the Sunnah, and we go there. The third, and Allah knows best, the third question, is it permissible to pray in a masjid that allows the Shia to pray with them, and who allow having books of the Ahmadiyyah-sekten in the masjid library? Okay, again, there's different aspects to this point. That yes, it is permissible to pray there in a masjid. It is permissible to pray in a masjid. If you're saying follow the people there, because when people come to the masjid, you cannot disallow a person from praying in the masjid. You can't ban somebody from praying in the masjid. Okay, but you can talk to them, give them da'wah, call them, invite them, but you can't ban somebody from coming to the masjid. Okay, rather, if someone's coming to the masjid, then that's a fantastic opportunity. We sit down with them every time. Sit down and encourage them and talk to them and tell them, and especially our brothers who may be weak in Iman, and our brothers who might be a bit sinful, we encourage them. We don't ban them from the masjid. We encourage them. As regards the Shia, after a while they won't want to pray with you anyway. They won't want to pray with you anyway, so you have nothing to worry about. let them come. Tell them this is a Sunni masjid. We love Abu Bakr, we love Umar radiallahu anhu, we love Aisha radiallahu anha, we love Ali radiallahu anhu. This is our masajid. This is the sunnah. Encouraging them in a nice way. جادلهم بالتي أحسن. Yani, debate with them or invite with them in a good way. And these books of the Ahmadiyyah-sekten, then we advise the people whose masjid. They say, look, got books of kufr. Books of kufr. Look what he's saying. And the hujjah is established upon them. This brings us to a point that was very important to understand. The scholars of the Sunnah say that it is a bid'ah, innovation, to leave off praying behind Ahlul Bid'ah. So, for example, the people who run the masjid, they're from Ahlul Bid'ah. Okay? If their bid'ah is kufriya, which takes them outside the fold of Islam, then we don't pray behind them. But if their bid'ah is mufassaqa, yani a bid'ah which doesn't take them outside the fold of Islam, then to leave prayer behind them is a bid'ah in itself. And this is what happened with the sect called the Haddadiyah. And this sect, Haddadiyah, started in Medina. And Shaykh Rabi' bin Hadi al-Madkhali, hafidhahullah ta'ala, was one of the foremost in refuting them, because they were too shadid, they were too harsh. They said if anybody does a bid'ah, that's it, mubtadi'. Okay, so they left off praying behind Ahlul Bid'ah. So our scholars spoke about this and said it's a bid'ah to leave off praying behind Ahlul Bid'ah. To leave off. It's a masjid. These people, yes, if the bid'ah is kufriya and they're promoting, innovation and stuff like that, but if it's a masjid, and they will be upon a certain way, don't get me wrong, they will be upon a certain methodology, yes, but we go and pray behind them. If we can pray behind somebody who's Salafi or somebody who's closer to the Sunnah, then you should do so, closer to the Sunnah. But that doesn't mean that our hearts become attached to them and these type of things. Sorry, I'm talking about Ahlul Bid'ah and the people of deviancy. No, we don't get our hearts, we just pray behind them. Okay? So that's the distinction. But we advise the people, and Allah knows best. The last question, when some Muslims are advised that they do innovative actions such as reciting Surah Fātihah for the dead, they said it is haram. They say, is it haram to recite Surah Al-Fātihah? Yeah, and they say, is it haram to recite Surah Al-Fātihah? We say, yes, it is. We say, yes, it is. Because the Prophet ﷺ prohibited that. The Prophet ﷺ prohibited innovation. So we say, yes, it is haram. Because the Prophet ﷺ said, Man amila amalan, whoever did a deed or an action, laysa alayhi amruna fahuwa raddun, then it is rejected. Whoever did an action or a deed which is not upon what we have commanded, then it is rejected. Or the Prophet ﷺ said in another hadith, another similar narration, Man ahdatha fi amrina, whoever innovated in our matter, anyone who brought something new in our religion, min fi amrina hadha ma laysa minhu fahuwa raddun, and he is not from it, then it is rejected. So yes, in this situation, in these circumstances, so we have to be very careful how we answer, reply to them. They say, is it haram to recite Surah Fātihah? We say to them, is it halal to do something which the Prophet ﷺ didn't do in religion? That's what we reply to them. We say, is it halal to do something new which the Prophet ﷺ didn't show us? Is this halal? And they won't know what to answer with. But if we say, and then when they ask us, is it haram to recite Surah Fātihah? We say, yes, it's haram. They say, oh, you're saying it's haram. Look how tricky and deceitful they are. So we flip it on them. We say to them, so are you saying it's halal to do something which the Prophet ﷺ didn't tell us to do and show us what to do? Or are you saying that the Prophet ﷺ left out something? And they will not be able to reply. They cannot say anything. And Allah knows best. With that, we've come to the end of this lesson. جزاكم الله خيرا for listening. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.